He's a stand-up comedian, and on October 17th, Brian will co-star along with Ron Livingston. We like Ron. Peter Farrelly, the TV series Loudermilk on the Audience Network. So big TV star there. November 11th, Brian Regan makes his Carnegie Hall debut. Look at you doing big boy things there.
I'm going to be in the audience in Carnegie Hall.
You are?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're not on stage.
No. I'm going to go there and see a show. I don't know who's going to be there.
That is not true. He's got 2 Netflix stand-up series specials this fall.
I have a deal for 2 one-hour specials. One of them will be coming out in November, and the other one will be coming out in a couple of years. All
right. I mentioned this a couple of times, and glad that word got back to you. But my children, when they were growing up, younger, turned me on to your comedy tapes, your CDs.
I'm very honored.
And driving in the car when you're trying to get kids to, not fight each other. And I just would, they would give this laugh, this guttural laugh, like a belly laugh out loud where you're snorting. And I just remember listening to those tapes, and my kids go, "Can we go see him? He's going to be in Stamford, Connecticut." I said, "Okay." And I said to my wife, "Do we have to worry about language here?" And she said, "No."
Wow.
And then so we sat in the audience, and then it was just one of those experiences where I went, you know what? I wonder if people know there's great comedy without it being sexual innuendo or double entendre. It was just you're very bright in seeing things in a unique way, a fun way, and it was fun for an entire family, which is kind of rare.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. Thank you very much. I like to work that way on stage, but on radio, I'm absolutely filthy.
Good.
So buckle up.
But when we just played your must-win situation.
Yeah.
But are you a sports fan?
I played football when I was young. I like to play golf occasionally. I ran track and field when I was in high school. I know a little bit about sports, but I would not consider myself an avid sports fan.
How much sports would you incorporate in stand-up? Like, why must-win situation did you incorporate that? What was it about it that you just said?
Because it always drove me crazy when I heard that question being asked. I would want to come through the TV every time I would hear somebody ask that question. So that kind of thing just jumps out at me.
And then you write it. Do you write it down and then all of a sudden say, "All right, now do you have certain things, topics, and you go, okay, now let me extrapolate here and come up with a bit"?
Yes. Like another one that I've been doing recently is when an athlete jumps up and says, "That's what I'm talking about," Well, how do I know? I think they should be required to show the proof. So I have this thing where, if they make a good catch in the corner of the end zone and say, "That's what I'm talking about," they should whip out an iPad. "In fact, this is me from an interview just last evening." And then show the guy going through the whole motions where he describes this incredible catch he's going to make. "See, that's what I was talking about." So you just see little things like that, and you go, maybe there's something funny there. I don't know.
When you were growing up, who did you look at, listen to, and all of a sudden something clicked and you said, "Can I do this? Can I be this?"
Well, I always liked comedy when I was a kid. My mom and dad are very funny. All my brothers and sisters are funny. And
it's a big family, too.
Yeah. 8 kids. And, so we used to, be funny around the house. And then I used to staying up late and watch Johnny Carson, when he did his monologues and stuff like that. But in terms of stand-up comedians, I used to really like watching guys do a stand-up set. It was always, or women. It was always intriguing to me to watch someone do stand-up. And some of the people that popped out are the bigger names, obviously, like Steve Martin and George Carlin and Richard Pryor. But there were some more obscure guys, like a Kelly Monteith. I don't know if you remember, there was a guy named Kelly Monteith who he might still be doing stand-up, who I just thought was incredibly funny. He had this bit about driving down the road and seeing one shoe in the median. And he said, "I just don't get that." He goes, "I can understand 2 shoes or no shoes. I don't understand 1 shoe." And he had this whole thing about a guy driving going, "I'm tired of this shoe." And he would take the shoe and throw it out the window. "This one I like. This one I'm keeping. That one I've had enough of." So, I would see things like that when I was young and go, that's funny to me because I've seen lone shoes on in the median. And the fact that somebody else would notice that and come up with a joke about that was always fascinating to me.
But you have to tell your parents at some point, this is what I want to do for a living. Mm-hmm. How did that go over?
I was 10 credit hours shy of graduating from Heidelberg College, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. You know, I was like coming up to the finish line of a marathon, and I wasn't going to quite get there. I knew I wanted to do stand-up, and from what little I knew about it, I knew you didn't need a degree. You know, you don't show up at the Chuckle House, and they're not going to go, "Where's your sheepskin?" So I thought, I'm just going to give this a shot, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back and finish the college thing.
If they gave out degrees in comedy, like masters, like a bachelor arts and science, like if you were going to do that, like who would be magna cum laude and summa cum laude? And I know you've never thought of this, but it just kind of popped in of just saying.
Well, some of the names that I mentioned, I mean.
But is Seinfeld?
Oh, yeah. Seinfeld, I think, is amazing. I love how much mileage he can get out of everyday things. I find that beautiful.
And he's clean, too, when he performs. Not that those who are, you can be suggestive, but, that, and I have great appreciation for Richard Pryor and Louis C.K., those kind of, Eddie Murphy. But, Seinfeld's able to look at something and you go, I'd never look at it that way, but I'll never look at it the same way I did before.
Right. But you talk about some guys who were dirty or blue. There's a lot of guys out there who I think are great. I think as long as it's truthful and organic to who you are as a performer. I happen to like to do it the way I do it, but I don't like stand on a soapbox and go, everybody should do it this way. I like the fact that different people are doing different things.
But was that any part of your parents being able to see you and doing your act? How was that the first time they saw you in the audience?
The first time they saw me was at a little comedy club in Fort Lauderdale, and I had worked my way up to where I was going to be the opening act. I was going to do 10 minutes at the start of the show, and the club and all the other comedians were pretty dirty. And so the guy who ran the club, Joe Mullen, real good guy, knew that how I felt. I don't want my parents to be subjected to that. So they actually kept my mom and dad. It was almost like they were in a holding room out front. And then
hermetically sealed.
Yeah, they were hermetically sealed from any foul language. And then when I was about to be introduced, they brought my mom and dad in and my brothers and sisters. I did my 10 minutes, and then they got them up and escorted them out, and now we're back to the filth. But it was cool. My mom and dad were pretty proud of me.
Sometimes it's harder to do it in front of people who know you.
I'm fascinated that people who get started now want to do it in front of people they know. I wanted to do it in front of a room full of strangers. Yeah. Because if it didn't go well, then I don't have to hear about it for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So that's the way I wanted to do it. But, now they have, when people try to get into comedy, they have these situations where you have to bring friends or they won't even let you on stage. So it's a whole different animal.
What do people say to you on the street? Depending on where you are, but what reaction do you get?
They say, can you give me directions to...
Yeah. Are you recognized?
Occasionally.
But do they bring up a joke? They
will do that. And what I think is interesting is when they bring up a bit that's not one of my bits.
I love it when you... Yeah.
I met a couple, very nice people. I was with my daughter, and we went to this shark thing in Las Vegas. And this couple came up, and they were like, wow, you're the comedian, right? And I was like... Yeah, I felt pretty good. And the wife said, there's not a day that goes by that we don't go, Hot Pockets, which is Jim Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan. And
okay, but it's a white guy.
Yeah, I'm fascinated that she even knows I'm a comedian. But right when she said Hot Pockets, her husband went, oh, no. And he's trying to cover, and she's like, no, I swear, maybe twice a day. And he's like, no. So, but I don't even call him out on it. I just
Sure,
say,
I'd go with it.
Yeah, I just go, I'm glad you like the bit.
Well, I used to get, you're the Sports Center dude. They didn't, or you would get, Chris Berman. I actually had somebody say, Stuart Scott, love your work. And I go, Stuart's black. Like that's really confused. That'd be like saying Hannibal Buress right there.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Funny stuff.
I had somebody come up to me after a show. No, not after show, just in a mall sometime and said, hey, man, I like your comedy. And I was like, wow, that means a lot to me. Thank you. And he said, my favorite bit of yours is your bouillon cube joke. I have no such joke. I don't know what he's talking about. And I said, oh, wow. You know, and at the time I made the mistake of correcting them. I was like, well, I don't really have a bouillon cube joke. Now I would go, I'm glad you like it, and just move on. Yeah. But at the time I was like, I don't have a bouillon cube joke. And he said, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's the favorite joke of yours. So I learned my lesson, you know.
I have people who say, I love you on SportsCenter. I watch you every morning. They do that now. and I've been gone for 10 years from ESPN. And I'm to the point now where I go, thank you. Thank you. I love the way you do your highlight. Thank you. We'll continue with Brian Regan. He is starring. We'll talk about this Loudermilk on Audience Network. Ron Livingston. It's a Peter Farrelly, the Farrelly Brothers TV series. And then he makes his Carnegie Hall debut on November 11th. So we'll continue with Brian Regan. We'll talk about the Irish goodbye.
I heard you guys talking about that.
Yeah, I'm the king.
Yeah?
King of the Irish goodbye.
Slip out the side door.
Yes. In fact, if you leave today, you don't even have to say goodbye. I'll be okay with that. Just letting you know. All right. We'll continue with Brian. We'll do so right after this. On October 17th, he'll be a TV star, along with Ron Livingston. Peter Farrelly's TV series Loudermilk on the Audience Network, Channel 239. Also making his Carnegie Hall debut. And you're on tour right now.
Yes.
You ever opened for a band, a concert?
Yes, I opened for the Outlaws, which is like...
Green Grass and High Tides Forever.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I was performing in a city where they were also performing. They didn't choose me. It's just whoever was promoting the show said, we need a comedian. So I went on stage and listened to people yell Outlaws at the top of their lungs for 20 minutes straight.
During your entire set?
Oh, yeah. Outlaws! And I just kept trying to go, yeah, man, they're great. You know, they're going to be out here soon. Outlaws! Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm looking forward to hearing their show, too. They're not out here yet. They're going to be coming out in a little while. I'm doing some stand-up. Outlaws! So that was fun. I wish I had a video of that I could sell. Listen to people yell Outlaws for 20 minutes.
Do you have to be screwed up to be a comedian? Like you had a good childhood, didn't you?
Yeah, good family life, the whole thing. I don't know that you need to be screwed up, but you need to have a part of your brain that's askew.
Warped.
Yes, you have to see things in a bizarre way, and you also have to be willing to handle incredible rejection, because it's not going to go well every time you're on stage, and especially early in your career, you're going to have some bad shows, and so you have to have a weird brain to want to put up with that.
But there's a confidence level, but it almost seems like it's fake confidence, because it may go from city to city where you go up there and you go, man, I'm going to kill tonight, and then all of a sudden you have that one joke and you go, wait, they missed it. And then does doubt set in at all when you're doing stand-up?
I try on stage to have a mix. I don't know what I want the audience to think I'm completely confident, yes. But in my head, it's 50% confidence and 50% faking confidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to get up there and act like, hey, I feel like I belong up here. But, you can't help but have your moments of doubt, especially if you're 10 minutes in and you haven't gotten much laughter yet.
We had some people respond that we know, some people who work with the show, friends of the show, and they said, ask Brian to talk about what people try to put in the overhead bin on an airplane.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I used to do this thing about sitting, I just observe, just sit in my seat. And I just want to do everything properly and do things within reason. But there's a lot of people out there that are not interested in doing things within reason. And I used to love watching people try to fit stuff in the overhead rack that ain't going in there in a million years. They have like a mattress and a lamp. And you're sitting there going, what kind of perception problems does this guy have? And the flight attendants are always nice. You know, they always run up and they're like, oh, I don't know if that's going to fit. You know, maybe we can check it for you. And I always thought I would last about 8 seconds at that job. I would just run up and go, hey, hey, does this look like it's going to fit? You have this much room and you have a dead yak. You don't see all these people waiting on you? You don't see them? No? Oh, this is your world. Oh, it's all about you. We'll wait for you, you captain. You know, so it's just people. Just people.
But they feel like they can push. The harder they push, it's somehow going to fit in the overhead bin.
It'll get in there. Last night when I was flying here, I saw a guy doing it just with his suitcase.
It's going to get in there.
Here, this is the suitcase, and this is the space. And he just... And the flight attendant came up and said, we're going to have to check that. And he's like, the last plane they put on, that was the last plane. This plane, if you can see, that doesn't fit in there. But
tell me about Loudermilk. You're going to be with Ron Livingston and its Audience Network, Peter Farrelly, the Farrelly brothers.
Yes. Yeah, it's an amazing experience for me. It's a TV series that Peter Farrelly, like you said, is directing. It's called Loudermilk. Ron Livingston plays the main character named Loudermilk, and he's a guy who's recovering from substance abuse, and he runs a small group of people who discuss their substance abuse problems. I'm one of the people in the group, and then stories go off from our stories. And Peter Farrelly is just fantastic as a director. And it's a 10-episode series, and it's going to be coming out in a couple months. And I've never done anything like this, so it's pretty cool for me.
Acting versus stand-up.
I was petrified the first day I showed up. Not as petrified, but I was like nervous to do this acting thing because that's not what I do. And he shot all 10 episodes like a movie. Like he shot everything and it wasn't necessarily in chronological order. The first scene I shot was my most important scene.
Oh God!
Like I got in early in the morning. I had to go to the set, and I had to do this scene where I'm reconnecting with my daughter, who I haven't seen like in 10 years. And it's supposed to be funny, but also very serious. And I do the scene, and I'm used to stand-up. You know, when you do well, you hear laughs. But on a set,
nobody's allowed to laugh.
Nobody's laughing. Nobody, you do your thing, and they go, cut. And you're like cut, like you're cutting me out of the show, so we shot it a few times. And then that night, I get back to the hotel, and I'm like, I have no idea if that was any good or not. Peter Farrelly called me in the room and said, hey, man, you available to have a cocktail tonight? And I thought he was going to fire me. I swear. I thought I was so bad.
Bring your playbook. You're going to be fired.
Yeah, I thought it was to bring the playbook. And I thought he was going to be kind and tell me face to face. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I go down to have a drink, and there's other people at the table who are also working on the show. And then I'm thinking, now he can't fire me because there's other people here. So I'm sitting there the whole time, going, when is this going to happen? Then other people going, all right, good night. And now it's just him and me. And I'm going, here's the moment. And he said, hey, good job today. Look forward to seeing you on the set tomorrow. I was like, he had no idea what turmoil was going on in my head, man. I really thought I was headed to the airport that night.
Do you practice the look that you have with your eyes? Like, I remember your delivery. I remember that that stood out to me when you would deliver and how you used your face, your eyes.
No, I don't practice it. I'm not even.
Oh, now I made you self-conscious.
Yeah.
Now you're really screwed up. But there was something about the delivery, the eyebrows, that kind of heightened what you were going to say.
I'm more interested in the words and the moments, and a lot of the bits that I do they're scenes. Just like the overhead acting. That's a scene. That's not really a joke, like two guys walking to a bar joke. And so for it to work, I have to act it out.
Observation.
But I'm not aware of it.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the first time when I see it, it's usually like if I do a TV spot and then later I'll watch it. I don't like it. I'm going, man, I didn't realize I looked that goofy. You know what I mean? But
when you watched yourself on Letterman, and you were on Letterman usually at least once a year.
I was very fortunate with that show. I ended up doing 28 of them.
28. The last year, what was that? Was there anything different about the last year than the first time you were on?
Well, I knew. Well, the second to last one I did, I thought was going to be the last one, and because I was on like a 9-month rotation kind of thing, and then they asked me to be on like the second to last week, which was a huge, huge honor.
And he always took care of comedians, like his stable of comedians. It seemed like he always had made time for you.
To make him laugh feels like being knighted, you know.
Do you remember one that really got him?
I remember I did one stand-up thing, and I did this whole thing about standing in bank lines and how they snake back and forth, and that awkward moment when it starts to go back and you don't know which way to look. You know,
you've seen that person a couple of times now?
Yeah, like this person's looking this way. Do I look this way until I get, or do I look him in the ear? You know, so I had a thing about feeling awkward and then finally being that guy and having this guy over here. And I talked about now he's the guy who's in the awkward spot. And the punchline was that he's looking in my ear, and I would say, "Get a good gander, idiot spot boy." So I finished my thing, and then Letterman came over after my stand-up. You know, he would shake your hand before you went to commercial, and as he was walking towards me, he said, "Get a good gander, idiot spot boy." And I was just, what an honor.
Oh, you're 10 feet off the ground.
You know what I mean? Like he not only, I guess, thought it was funny, but to remember the actual words, you know, it was very, very rewarding.
You can see Loudermilk on Audience Network. That will be October 17th with Ron Livingston.
Unless I got fired and cut out of the whole show.
November 11th, Carnegie Hall. Brian Regan, REGAN.com, with Netflix specials and also tickets and full tour dates as well. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for stopping by, but thank you again for something I bonded with my kids over and you helped with that. So thank you.
You're incredibly kind. I know you had mentioned me a couple times on the air in the past, and people have told me about that, and so I tried to YouTube it, and it's a huge honor to me that you like what I do, and thank you guys as well, man. Really appreciate it.
Brian Regan, and we'll take a break. We'll come back after this on The Dan Patrick Show.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.